Today, I'm going to be supercharging my 3D printer. There's a few things I want to add to the printer just to make my life a bit easier. The first being web control, so that I can just go onto a browser, log into the printer, and then be able to start, stop, upload files, check how the progress is going, that sort of stuff. The second, along the same lines, I want to be able to monitor the print with a webcam feed, so that I have a webcam that's always looking at the print so I can see if anything's going wrong, if it's failing, how long it's gone through, and how the print's going so far. And then third, we want the time lapses. So those lovely buttery smooth time lapses of the prints like growing out of the print bed. You've probably seen them. I want to be able to put some of those into my projects, into my videos. So let's get that going as well. So to do this, we're gonna be running a Raspberry Pi. I'm gonna use a B3 Plus for this, running octoprint. So octoprint is a really good software. It runs on the Raspberry Pis with its own little flavor called octopi. So we'll install that on the Raspberry Pi first. Then that gives us the functionality then to plug the Raspberry Pi into our printer and control everything from there. From the starting, the stopping, the remote control like we wanted to do, the monitoring, so you can plug the webcam in as well to get a feed. And then with some extra plugins that we'll look at, you can get those time lapses that we talked about too. So let's go through what we're gonna need to put all this together, the parts, and then we'll go to setting it up. You can follow along with basically any printer as long as you can connect it via USB to your printer. They should all work just fine, and there'll be a compatible list linked in the description. So you've got your printer, you're gonna need a Raspberry Pi. As I said, I'm gonna use the 3B Plus. I'm pretty sure the 2.0 even works. They don't recommend it, but I'm pretty sure all of the latest Raspberry Pi versions work just fine. We're gonna need a webcam so we can monitor. If you've just got an old one lying around like I have here, you can use that. But if you're gonna be doing some time-lapsey stuff, you probably wanna buy a new one, so I've also gone and done that. Then you just need a micro USB or USB cable to connect up to your printer. We're also going to need to print a few things for this project. So I'm going to print a case for my Raspberry Pi so I can stick it onto the side of my printer. Then we're also going to print a mount for the camera so we can get a nice position and view onto the print bed. Everything I've mentioned so far will be linked just below the like button. The STL files, the GitHub repositories, anything that you'll need for this project will all be linked down there. So first things first, I recommend you go and get those prints started because they're going to take a while. But then we'll pop inside the computer now and we'll have a look at setting up the Raspberry Pi with octoprint. So there's two things we're going to need to get the Raspberry Pi set up. You're going to need octoprint, the image, and you're going to need Bellina Etcher to put the image onto an SD card to put on the Raspberry Pi. So if we go to the website here, we go to octoprint.org. You go to the main page, it'll be linked in the description, but you just go down to the download big button there, and octopi is what we're going to want to download. That's the flavor of Linux that runs the octoprint software. You just press download octoprint there, octopi, and you can just see it downloads a zip folder. You want to unzip it then. Once you've got it, download Bellina Etcher. You'll have the image file. You want to just select the image from Bellina, from Etcher I mean, and then put that onto your SD card and you'll be good to go. So once you have installed the image, just unplug and then plug it back in. You should be able to see this text file on the SD card. You want to make sure you go down and change the SSID and password to your SSID and password for your router. That'll save us some time then when we're setting up the Pi itself. You should be able to just plug it in and it'll connect straight away. So now take that SD card now where you've changed the text file and it got the image on. You want to plug that into your Raspberry Pi and power it up. This should now go through the steps of setting up Octopi, should connect to the Wi-Fi, and then you should be able to go onto your laptop, go to octopi.local, and then you should be able to see the web interface for octoprint. Once it's connected, that's basically all the setup you need. But we're going to go through and configure it for our purposes, make it look a bit nicer, get it all set up the way we want. So now that we've got the SD card set up, plug it into our Pi, turn it on, and now we should be able to go onto the web browser. So I'm just going to use my laptop. We want to go to http://octopi.local, and we'll go to that IP address there. You want to use the default login, which will be on the screen. Once you've logged in, this is the page you should have. You can see this is the basic functionality, all pretty simple. We're going to go through it But first of all, let's get the other bits and pieces we need set up so we can put it in, and then we can get it all set up in one go. First things first, we're going to mount the camera. So this bracket arm that we printed, I went through a few iterations using different models. Some of them just snapped, some of them weren't strong enough. This is the one we actually ended up on, which is the best. It has swivel, it has tilt, so we can get the position of the camera just right for those time lapses. Then just behind that, then we're going to mount the Raspberry Pi. So obviously I put it in this case. It's got little route mats which I put little nuts on. So I've got little nuts to hold the camera mount in and to hold the Raspberry Pi case in. So we just put those in the channels and then just use the bolts to screw that down. I'll probably use some cable ties to tidy up the cables just a bit because they're a bit long, maybe get some shorter ones, but other than that I think it's come out really nice. So with the Raspberry Pi mounted and the camera mounted, we can now go back into the octoprint settings. We'll add a couple of plugins, make sure that camera's positioned correctly and in a nice place, and then we'll be done. So here we are, I've just loaded up the octoprint software on the laptop again, octoprint.local. So first things first, you want to go to the wrench at the top here. You want to go down to plugin manager. As you can see, if you go to third-party plugins, I've got Octolapse and Themify. These are the two you want to install. First, Octolapse is the nice time lapses we talked about, so the print's growing out of the print bed, that sort of stuff. And then we got Themify, which is literally just a dark theme, makes your environment look a bit nicer, not this horrible white, you know, all that sort of stuff. So to do that, you do get more, and then you'll type in Octolapse and Themify, but if you see I type it in, I've already got it installed, so it won't show up for me. But you type in Themify and then you just press install there and they'll pop up. So if we enable those, we'll enable Octolapse and Themify, and you can see now if we restart and wait a minute, you can see straight away we have a nice lovely dark theme, and we can go through. You got your temperature, you got your controls, so here you can actually control the printer, move it back and forth, up and down, home positions, that sort of stuff. G-code viewer, so you can see what the actual G-code is doing at the current time. Terminal, so you can see what actually commands are going through. Time lapse, so it has a time lapse feature built in, but it's not great. So this is Octolapse, and then you got the big button there which we've just installed, Octolapse, which will give you those lovely crispy B-roll sort of time lapses. So I've only done a few time lapses so far, but we'll put a few in now so you can see. So with that, I'll say this is a success. We have the remote control, so the web interface where we can control the printer, set it to go, move the printer around, all that sort of stuff. We got the web interface here, so we can see the webcam, we can use it, move it around, make sure that that is all right and dandy. Second, we got the remote monitoring, so we can check up on the printer, make sure we can see what it's doing, if it's failed, monitor the print from anywhere we like. So third, we got the time lapses, those buttery smooth time lapses. I think they come out great. I'll definitely try and make some improvements, get some light in so I can make those time lapses really pop. If you did like it, make sure you leave a like, and YouTube thinks you'll like these videos here, so give those a click, and I'll see you next one. Peace.